Hi, Kieran here again. Okay, it's another video I've been putting off. I think I put it off for about 6 months. So I'm on a bit of a roll tonight. I'm making two videos, which is pretty good going so far. Okay, the subject of this video is, again, this is more moral sort of theory. I'm trying to sort out all my moral theory ideas and then move on to doing other videos about more applied ethics kind of thing, or politics and all that, more fun things hopefully. So I'm trying to put my ethical theories kind of to bed now. Okay, so this is about infinite ethics. Okay, the main point I should talk about here was raised by the philosopher Nick Bostrom. There'll be a link to his website below. The point he made was that infinity really fucks up utilitarianism. I think it's really bad news for all ethical sort of views. Really, I think you should take this infinite business pretty seriously. I think, but the more of a utilitarian you are, the more sort of prone to this you are really. I mean, the argument that Bostrom came up with, and this isn't the only problem with infinity and ethics and utilitarianism, is that what he was saying is that, okay, we physicists haven't sort of found the edge of the universe, so we could well be in an infinite universe, which is pretty amazingly bizarre in itself. So it means there's an infinite number of stars and galaxies and stuff, and an infinite number, even more bizarrely, of life, and an infinite number of even life. There's an infinite number of creatures that are exactly like me, living lives like me. Infinity's mind-bogglingly weird, but basically, the ethical point is that if there's an infinite number of people, there's an infinite amount of happiness, and there's an infinite amount of misery, or pleasure and pain, or whatever. And this means that if you maximize happiness in your own actions, then you're just adding to something that's infinite anyway, so you're not actually changing the amount of happiness in the universe, therefore it's totally pointless. It's a great point. I think we can wiggle out of it, because, in a way I will now explain. Okay, I think there are two ways of looking at infinity. You can either say that some infinities are bigger than others, or you can say that all infinities are kind of not comparable in size. And I think mathematicians seem to be going for this first idea, that you can have one sort of infinities bigger than other infinities. I did try to sort of look into this issue quite seriously because of the ethical sort of side of it. I actually ended up looking at the sort of Wikipedia entries on infinity and stuff. Anyway, Bostrom and I think, seem to be going with this other idea that you can't actually compare infinities. Let me give an example, which I thought of when I was looking at this stuff. Okay, imagine a world called Crockery World. Crockery World consists of an infinite number of cups sitting on an infinite number of saucers. That's it. That's everything that's in Crockery World. Now, I think I'm right saying things are called crockery. Anyway, question: are there more cups or more objects in Crockery World? Are there more cups than there are objects? Now, common sense seems to sort of say, well, there's less. Sorry, less. Well, there are less cups than there are objects. Perhaps more pertinent question. Common sense would tell us that there are sort of more objects than there are cups, because there's all these cups, but then there's an equal number, you might think, of saucers as well. There certainly are objects that are things that are objects but are not cups. So you'd think there are more objects than cups. The other way of looking at it, which seems to be the way that me and Bostrom look at it, is to say, but actually you can't even say there are more objects than there are cups, because there are an infinite um, number of both objects and cups. You just simply can't say, you can't just make that seemingly common sense conclusion that there are more of them. They just aren't a comparable number um, of the two things. Now, if we take this non-comparable view of infinity and apply it to happiness in an infinite universe, or unfortunately a universe that might be infinite. I mean, the universe unfortunately only has to possibly be infinite, and I think our expected amount of happiness shoots up to infinity anyway. So, in a possibly infinite world, which we're clearly in, we take this non-comparable approach. As I say, utilitarianism's buggered, but we can't be certain that our philosophy, stroke mathematics, or philosophy of mathematics, or whatever is correct there. It's possible that the comparable view, I don't think it's as plausible, but I think the comparable view is possible, that some infinities are bigger than others. There's some common sense pushing us that way. So therefore, since our actions would be a complete waste of time if it was non-comparable, we might as well act as if we should, in fact, morally act as if it is comparable. Therefore, I think we've wiggled our way out of Bostrom's criticism there. So I'm okay to go with the idea that infinities when we're moralizing, we act as if infinities are comparable, because otherwise morality is a waste of time. Or utilitarianism, the morality I've gone for, is a waste of time. Unfortunately, that's not the end of the havoc that utilitarianism, that infinity wreaks on utilitarianism. There's another one which I've talked about before, actually, in this video called Reply to Nick. But I'll just repeat it quickly anyway. A problem we can't wiggle out of, I think. This problem is that, I'm basically biting the bullet on this one, is there are two possible futures. In one future, people, or some intelligent life, will create an infinite number of people, or create an infinite amount of happiness somehow. How would you make an infinite amount of happiness? Most likely, you obviously got to create an infinite amount of intelligent creatures. Most likely is to do with creating a universe, and then a chain reaction that makes more universes or something. So it's possible, it only has to be possible, that we can do that in the future. Some of my actions are going to lead to that, be more or less likely. Which means the amount of happiness, the impact on happiness from that aspect of my behaviour now is much greater than, infinitely greater than the impact on happiness of anything else I do. Like, for example, giving pleasure to another creature on Earth now, or alleviating another person or creature's pain now. The bottom line is that we should, if we can stomach it, our only goal should be to try and maximize the chance of this universe-making machine or whatever being made in the future. So that boils down to really trying to make sure that intelligence survives and technology develops in the future. We should be hell-bent on doing that, and not worry about starving people or all of that. This is a real pain for a utilitarian, because we probably most of us became utilitarians out of some sympathy for starving people on TV and animal rights and stuff. That's certainly where I was coming from when I was younger. When I was a young utilitarian. So it's a bit of a bummer. But I mean, I can fall back on the thing I was talking about in the last video, which is like we have to be realistic and go with our sentiments, and we can't. I don't think it's realistic that we're going to suddenly become utilitarian machines. I'm not going to expect that I'm going to be able to do that. So I'm going to be going with vegetarianism and using the fact that I feel sympathy for others. I'm going to be running with that, so using that to make myself do better things. Also, I mean, basically developing the human race is, you don't have to be bothered about infinity to want to do that as a utilitarian anyway, because clearly the human race can exist for billions of years, so it's that possible. This is also relying on this total view where you think an extra person, you count an extra person's happiness, not this average view. I think I talked about that in the Nick reply to Nick thing as well. But I think that's the best way. I believe in this total view, not the average view. So as I say, it wouldn't have to be infinite anyway, because the human race can exist for billions of years. I think Nick Bostrom pointed this out as well. So that's the biggest. We'd be trying to go for the survival of the human race anyway. Luckily, I think sort of animal rights and being reasonably sentimental and all that, being nice to each other, is the way the human race is going to survive and possibly make this infinite universe making machine. Anyway, it's a bit of a shame that I can't say that anybody's happiness right now is of any value. So you can all throw that back at in my face when I'm talking about politics and trying to sound like a nice guy. Last point I did think of is I think Nietzsche thought of this idea that he believed, in fact, that we might be living in an infinitely repeating universe anyway, where the universe just repeats exactly as it is an infinite number of times, I suppose. Does this come to the rescue from this business of that we should make this universe making machine sort of thing? I don't think it does. I mean, you could say, okay, if I help an animal now, it looks like I'm just doing it one time, but it could be that we're in an infinite repeating universe, and that action is infinitely repeating. Therefore, I'm helping an infinite number of animals. All look the same, not exactly the same. So it's actually an infinite amount of. CP is finite, but it's an infinite amount of happiness I'm making there. Or preventing an infinite amount of pain. But I think still, if we were in this Nietzschean repeater, or whatever you want to call it, and if somebody made a universe making machine within an infinite repeating thing, I mean, there's two ways you could look at that. You could say either you get an infinite times infinity number of universes being made, or you could look at the other way and say actually it still just results in one infinity. Just one infinity amount of universes. Mathematicians won't like this sort of talk, by the way, but anyway. But I think we've got to take the comparable view again because of the Bostrom thing, and I think that leads us to think that basically being in a Nietzschean repeater doesn't means there's infinity time. If you still have to be hell bent on building this infinite universe making thing, because there'll be an infinity times infinity number of universes, the amount of happiness coming from that, so wipe out basically. You don't want to help an animal sort of thing. You're now. Anyway, I hope that makes everything clear, and I'm going to now try and do more videos about current affairs and stuff. All the best.